For your seam allowance sample, you're going to use a sample square of fabric, and we are going to be stitching certain distances from the edge of the fabric, different width on each side. Now, to use that, we are going to be looking at the different lines on our needle stitch plate, as well as the lines that are indicating on our presser foot of where 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, and 5/8 would be. So we're first going to sew our first side at 1/8 of an inch. Start at the beginning of the fabric piece and sew all the way to the end. Guide on the inside toe of the presser foot. So if I look at my presser foot over here, this first line is indicating where I'm going to be lining up my fabric. So I want to line it up on the inside toe of my presser foot, and as I do that, it's going to be stitching very close to the edge of the fabric here. I'm going to go from one edge all the way to the other edge, right, basically going off of the side, and then I'm clipping my threads. So here I'm putting my fabric underneath my presser foot for my first line on the seam allowance sample. And I'm going to make sure that when my needle goes down for the first time, it's going to go into fabric, and I'm lining it up on the inside toe of my presser foot. So I should be able to see an entire feed dog as I'm sewing. Keep the threads towards the back. And sometimes with these machines, as you sew with them, if you're too close to the edge, it doesn't necessarily like it. So as you start, get close to the edge, but if you're not 100% on the edge, it's okay. Sometimes it's the machine's fault, not yours. So the entire way, no back stitching on this one, and then you're going to pull your threads off, and remember to trim off your loose threads. For the second line of our seam allowance sample, I'm going to do step number 3, sew the second side at 1/4 of an inch. Guide along the outside edge of the presser foot. So this time I'm going to line up with the edge here, and that's going to be my guide. This is really good if you have lots of layers under the presser foot where you maybe can't see the lines that are underneath, but the edge of your presser foot is always going to provide a guide that will allow you to know where 1/4 is. So again, I'm just going to sew this line, keeping it matched up with the edge the entire way, keeping your fingers away from the needle, and to the edge, and trim off any loose threads. Now on my third side, this one I'm going to be using the 1/2 line. Now this one doesn't have an actual line that's labeled on your needle stitch plate, but if you look at what is labeled, the 5/8 line and the 3/8 line, well, in between that is going to be 4/8. 4/8 is also 1/2. So I'll line up my edge with that 1/2 inch line, and that just means that where I'm sewing is 1/2 inch away from the outside of my fabric. And I'm just watching the line the entire time I'm sewing. I'm not too worried about what the needle's doing. I'm worried more about the edge of that line because that's what this sample is all about. And then our final side is at the 5/8 inch line. So this one's labeled, and this is the one that we use if it doesn't tell us what the seam allowance is, we are going to assume that it is the 5/8 inch line. All the way off the edge, trim any threads short. And now you can attach it to your packet. I'm going to attach it the same way that it shows in the picture, with the 1/8 inch seam allowance on the top, the 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, and then the left side has my 5/8 inch seam allowance. And pin it to your paper.